Season finale, season finale, season finale, season finale. 12. I do not know what you like, but I know what you need. It's getting harder to hide, it's getting harder to breathe. We at the end of the road, most of them falling asleep. I seen a lot of them come, I'm watching all of them leave. I do not know what you like, but I know what you need. It's getting harder to hide, it's getting harder to breathe. We at the end of the road, most of them falling asleep. I seen a lot of them come, they gon' watch all of us leave. Season finale, season finale.
Yeah, this is the season finale, we dipping like valleys. Who keepin' tally? Cause we keepin' busy and we in the middle of building like alleys. That got me smiley cause I'm with the body and we bout to flex like Pilates. We the new Illuminati and we the tsunamis. Eurobo, Igbo, and Mali, the Gad and Neftali. This flow is a homie and I don't do churches. The service too spotty, they need an antenna. I'm no Pavarotti, the soldiers is folding. Bro origami, forsaking the fly. Lamasa Bakhtani and I do not know what you like,
but I know what you need. I seen a lot of them come, I'm watching all of them leave.
Think goodbye, many are called that didn't survive. Judas embodied but different disguise. We got that water, we slip and we slide. Men of the Lord, prophets of God. Who about to stand in this fire? Somebody hand me the lighter. Who wanna rule this empire? Mind of a prince, line of defense. Line upon line upon line, I don't play. We march in unison, not a parade. We put the power of God on display. How long we been in this fight to this day?
Shalom family, I'm your host, and I want to welcome you back to another episode of the Hidden Truth documentary series. For this episode, we'll explore the 1607 settlement of Jamestown, where Bible prophecy was fulfilled in Genesis 49, where it says Gad will be overcome by a troop, but he will overcome at the end. Check us out.
So this here is a version of a Powhatan style longbow. roughly 5 to 6 feet in length out of local harder woods and natural string of sinew, gut, or leather, shooting wood and cane arrows, which the English say the men are able to hit a small target at about 40 yards reliably. Their best random shots at 100 or 120 yards, and put one of these nearly a foot through an English wood shield, although they say their own pistols will not do the same. So points of stone being common like this, flint and jasper, quartz and rhyolite.
So you're saying the weapons of the Native Americans were stronger than the settlers' pistols at times?
Yeah, for their piercing ability, the English seem to think so. So the difference is the musket has a lot more stopping power, but the bow is far faster and quieter.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Gad is a mighty troop.
Oh no! They want us out in the open. No, nobody move! Just stay where you are!
So who is the tribe of Gad? With the Bible and history, we're going to identify the tribe of Gad. Let's start with Deuteronomy 33 and the 20th verse.
The book of Deuteronomy chapter 33 and verse 20. And of Gad he said, Blessed be he that enlargeth Gad.
Blessed be he that enlargeth Gad. Gad makes up over 300 Native American tribes. Read.
He dwelleth as a lion.
He dwelleth as a lion. Gad is also known as the warrior tribe because of how fierce they are in combat. Read.
And teareth the arm with the crown of the head.
And teareth the arm with the crown of the head. Gad was also known for making blood brother pacts, where they would cut their arm and come into agreement or allyhood with their brothers. They also had a peculiar crown upon their head made from feathers. Read.
Verse 21. And he provided the first part for himself.
He provided the first part for himself. Gad dwelt in what would be known as North America, which is the exact reason why the so-called white man would take to North America and make it his central headquarters, because it was the best part of the land. Read.
Because there, in a portion of the lawgiver, was he seated.
He was seated in the portion of a lawgiver because Levi stayed behind with the southern kingdom of Judah. Gad would step into the role of the lawgiver, or the role of the Levites for the northern kingdom. Read.
And he came with the heads of the people.
And he came over with Manasseh and Ephraim, the heads of the northern kingdom.
He executed the justice of the Lord and his judgments with Israel.
All right, so we're still on our tour through the historic Jamestown. Here's our next pit stop, a site of habitation. Pretty much just to summarize what's happening here, it's saying that when the colonists showed up in the early 1600s, the Edomites, Esau, according to the Bible, that red and hairy cave dweller that's known as the so-called white man, he showed up and he thought that this land was uninhabited. But it's not that it was uninhabited. According to the references here, it looks like Gad, they didn't live here, but they used this land to hunt. They used this land to harvest crops. And according to the records, when Esau was talking to Gad, what would happen is Gad would travel out hunting for the season. And wherever they found the most game, they would make like little small temporary villages. Kind of like we do for tabernacles. We make a little temporary hut, temporary dwelling place. And they would live there as long as they were hunting. They would gather in all of the game and then they would go back. So this land here, we got a foot trail here. We're gonna go check this out in a minute. But the main point is that when Esau showed up, he set up his own colonies here because he thought it was uninhabited. All while Gad was still utilizing this land to hunt and harvest their crops. Let's check it out.
When the English first arrived in 1607, these different groups had some autonomy into how to deal with them. Some of them tried shooting at the English as soon as they saw them. Others tried to avoid them, and still others tried trading. And after a few months, that becomes kind of the foreign policy, one of trade between the English and the Powhatan. The English have a lot of cool things the Powhatan had never seen before, metal tools, copper, beads, things like that, or maybe not had never seen before, but couldn't have easy access from. Whereas the Powhatan had one thing that the English really need. What is it that the English need from the Powhatan?
Food.
Food, yeah, especially early on. Corn becomes the main thing that's traded from the Powhatan to the English. And that works out okay at first. But after a few years, in 1609, there's a drought that's affecting Virginia. And because of this drought, the Powhatan aren't able to grow as much corn as they had before. But the English don't need that corn. So the Powhatan stop trading corn, and the English, what do? They steal it. Yeah, they start taking it by force, raiding Powhatan towns, burning them to the ground, taking what food they can. The Powhatan respond to this by laying the fort under siege during the winter of 1609-1610. What we now call the starving time is largely a result of the siege, and about 60% of the English population starves to death over the course of that winter. Those that survive are willing to give up. They get on the boat and they start sailing home. But they're caught in the Chesapeake Bay the next day by their resupply ship and the new governor, who tells them to turn around and retake the colony. And over the next 4 years, there's intermittent war between the English and the Powhatan. This goes on until a person shows up you've probably heard of before. You folks have heard of Pocahontas, I assume, yes? So when the English first arrived, Pocahontas would have been a kid of maybe about 9 or 10 years old. The stories of her saving John Smith's life and that love story is probably fiction. It was largely exaggerated, whatever did happen, and the Disney movie is to blame for a lot of the rest. But what is true is that in 1613, during this war, she was quite a bit older. She was actually captured by the English during this war and taken to the fort and held as a hostage, where she was going to be exchanged for English prisoners. However, while she's there, she ends up converting to Christianity, changes her name to Rebecca, and marries a gentleman named John Rolfe. And that marriage between Pocahontas and Rolfe ends up being essentially the physical embodiment of the treaty that ends the war. There's no physical document signed, but after that point, the fighting kind of stops. The English are going to keep arriving in greater and greater numbers, but Pocahontas and John Rolfe and their son Thomas go to England to promote the colony, where she catches a European disease in 1617 and dies there. The next year in 1618, Powhatan himself dies, and the chiefdom is inherited by his younger brother, Opicapam, who's widely considered to be a weak and ineffectual leader, and the real power behind the throne is his younger brother, Opechancanough. Opechancanough was the war leader under Powhatan, now he's the one kind of calling the shots. And he doesn't like the English very much, but the English haven't done a good job of endearing themselves to the Powhatan. The English have found the one thing that they make a lot of money off in the colony. What might that be? Tobacco. And in order to make money off tobacco, the English are requiring two things, a lot of land and a lot of labor. That need for land is coming directly at the expense of the Powhatans. All the farmland along the James River is being fenced off and turned into plantations. That need for labor eventually will lead to the African slave trade. At first, though, the English are using a lot of what they call indentured servitude. That is, people that are being basically indebted and then forced to work off that debt on the plantations. Some of them are African, some of them English, and some of them are Powhatan. And a lot of the Powhatan are working off debts from unequal trading practices. So in 1622, Opechancanough organizes them into an uprising to try to drive out the English and take them by surprise in a single day. They kill about 30% of the population in the colony in one day, terrifies the English. They fall back to the fort and wait for resupply, which arrives, and the war drags on for another 10 years, from 1622 to 1632. Eventually, there's a truce and a peace treaty. No one side is able to gain the upper hand, but the English, again, aren't going to stop arriving. More English, more African arrive, and eventually, the Powhatan try again, 1644. Opechancanough tries much the same tactics as before, but the numbers are not on his side. The war only lasts until 1646, when he's captured by the English and taken to the fort, where they're going to put him on trial, but his jailer shoots him. And with his death, there's no longer any leader for the Powhatan to rally behind. The English just appoint a puppet chief in charge of the Powhatan. That doesn't last very long, and in 1677, there's another treaty signed, this time with each of the individual tribes, essentially breaking apart the Powhatan chief.
All right, so they just broke down a lot of history from the settlers' perspective, and we see a lot of scriptures, a lot of history, a lot of Deuteronomy 28. They said that there was a lot of, they're talking about the Powhatan tribe. There was a bunch of smaller tribes, there was headers of those tribes, and then there was someone that was set over them. That's the same order that Moses established for us in the wilderness when he went to his father-in-law Jethro to establish order amongst the congregation. We got Pocahontas, who was taken away, converted to Christianity. Her name was changed. We see all the curses of Deuteronomy 28. We see, the Lord told us that intermarrying with these other nations, they will become snares and traps. She ended up getting a disease and dying. You know what I mean? So it's a lot of history. It's a lot of Bible prophecy that's being fulfilled, and we're getting it firsthand right here in Jamestown. That's what Gad called this land before Esau showed us. Son of Kamaka. They were organized in more than 30 tribes, each with a chief called a Werewolwansi, but they were united under the supreme chief Powhatan. That showed that order and rank structure that Moses set up a long time ago in the wilderness. The land of Virginia was called Senacomaca before it was called Virginia. This Jamestown settlement thing, man, it's a whole nother level, man. What we got behind us right now, we're on a foot trail to Black Point. This is the James River. Although this may not have happened at the same point in time, if you're familiar with the Willie Lynch letter, the atrocities that were done to our people to keep us in mental bondage and mental subjection happened right here along the James River. So just kind of get into the spirit, get into the thought process of all the history, all the destruction that's happened to our people right here in the state of Virginia from 1619 to the Willie Lynch letter to all the things that have happened in slavery since then, the slave revolts. But right here along the James River, Willie Lynch taught the slave masters to destroy the male image out the household, put the woman above the man, have the black woman be the right hand woman to the so-called white man, all of that stuff. Shalom, family. There you have it. We've done it again. Another episode of the Hidden Truth documentary series, where we've explored the history that's been hidden from our people right here in the state of Virginia. Until next time, I'm your host, Hosh. Shalom.
We used to scream Black Power while heroin was pushed. But at the end of the day, nothing's in vain. IUIC has been given a vision. The tents of Judah has risen. Many has attempted the mission, minor murmuring, omitting, and missing the mark. Just reading that he had the flame of fire in his eyes gave us the spark. We on Paul's mission. We out on the road, purple and gold, from Mexico, Cuba, Haiti, Ghana, Sierra Leone. 144,000 boots banging, concrete crackling. These are our men repented at heart. The scriptures is proof. IUIC, we deliver the truth.